Hello there, this is MD here with you on GebZilla. Photoshop offers several tools and commands that provide different ways to retouch parts of a photo, or even remove objects from a scene. The Content-Aware Fill command lets you remove objects by filling an area of a photo with another detailed image. Let's check it out. Content-Aware Fill always begins with a selection of the area. In this image, I want to remove the photographer from the scene. You can use any of the selection tools to make the initial selection. I'm going to use the Object Selection tool because I know that it'll do a good job with this particular subject. With this tool active, I will drag to define a rectangular marquee around the object. And you can see that the tool has done an excellent job sensing what the object is and creating a selection of it. With the selection active, I'm going to go to the Edit menu and choose Content-Aware Fill in the Content-Aware Fill workspace. The selected area is on the left, and the area that's been sampled to create the fill shows as a green overlay. To the right of this is the preview of the result, and on the far right is the control panel with the sampling area options and the fill and output settings. I'm going to zoom up on the preview a little bit so we can see what's happening. There's an obvious dark fringe here, and the color inside the fill is not really matching the dune behind it. And this is because the initial selection was very precise, and some of those darker edge pixels along with the shape of the photographer are being factored into the result. So, we can fix that by coming over to the lasso tool in the Content-Aware Fill toolbar, and then up in the options, you can see that there are choices to expand or contract the selection. I'm going to leave this set to the default of 10px. And I'll choose to expand the selection. And here you can see how that selection has been expanded to incorporate more of the detail around the subject. And in the preview pane, the result is greatly improved. In the sampling area options, the default is set to auto, and this method will use the content that is similar to the area that is immediately surrounding the selection. And this is generally the best option to start with. And as you can see, for this particular image, it's doing a really good job. The rectangular method will sample from a rectangular area surrounding the selection. So, when I click on that, if neither the auto or rectangular options are working, you can use custom, which allows you to define the area that is being sampled. So, let's explore that. I'm going to come over to the toolbar and choose the sampling brush, and I'm just going to begin to paint over the dune area to define that as detail to use to create the fill. And we can see the result there. Let me come down and add in some of the backgrounds here, and we'll get some of the areas where the photographer is standing, as well as some of that background detail. And there we go. That's already doing a really good job there. You can use the sampling brush tool with any of the sampling area options to modify the area that has been sampled for the fill. If you have multiple layers in your file, and you want the Content-Aware Fill to sample from all of the layers, instead of just the active layer, you can do this by clicking on the Sample All Layers checkbox. Below are the sampling area options. There are some additional fill settings that you can use, and if you mouse over each of these, a tooltip will appear explaining what they do, and what types of situations where they might be useful. Down in the output settings, you can choose to output to the current layer, a new layer, or a duplicate layer. I'm going to leave this set to new layer, which is the default, and when you are satisfied with the result, you can click OK to apply the Content-Aware Fill, and this will then return you to the main Photoshop workspace, where you can choose to click Apply, which will apply the Content-Aware Fill, but leave the Content-Aware Fill workspace open. This is very useful if there are additional areas that need to be filled. I'll click OK here, and then come up to the Select menu and choose Deselect. In the Layers panel, you can see the new layer, that was created by the content-aware fill. And if I turn the visibility of that layer off, and then on, you can see that it's doing an excellent job at covering the detail in that part of the image. What you learned: use content-aware fill to remove objects and people. When to use content-aware fill? Content-aware fill analyzes the image to find the best detail to intelligently replace a selected area, and it gives you controls for fine-tuning the result. This makes it an excellent method for removing large objects and people, even against a complex background. Begin with a selection. Working with content-aware fill always begins with making a selection. You can use any of the selection tools to create the initial selection. The Object Selection tool is a good choice for selecting a single object when there are multiple objects in a scene. Select the Object Selection tool in the toolbar and drag a loose rectangle or lasso around the item you want to remove. The tool automatically identifies the object inside the area you define and shrinks the selection to the object edges. The Object Selection tool usually makes a tight selection at the edges of an object. Including some of the area around the object in the selection will help content-aware fill create a better fill. Choose Select, Modify, Expand and enter a few pixels, just enough to create a thin border between the edge of the object and the selection. In this case, we entered 10 pixels. Choose Edit, Content-Aware Fill to open the Content-Aware workspace. The view on the left displays a green overlay that identifies the sampling area Photoshop is considering as it chooses source detail to create the fill. The view on the right is a live preview of the fill, which will change as you refine the result using the tools and controls in this workspace. Experiment with the sampling area options. If the preview doesn't display the result you want, experiment with the sampling area options on the right to control the area from which Photoshop is sampling details to create the fill. The Auto option intelligently determines which areas to sample based on color and texture. The Rectangular option creates a rectangular sampling area around your selection. The Custom option lets you manually specify which areas of the image to sample. Click the Custom button to remove the current green sampling area. Select the sampling brush tool in the toolbar and, in the view on the left, brush over the areas from which you want to sample. In some situations, this option may allow for more control and create a better fill. With any of these options, you can use the sampling brush tool, with its Add or Subtract option, to further change which image details are used as source material for the fill. Explore other tools and controls. Explore other options to fine-tune the result. Experiment with the color adaptation settings to adapt the brightness and contrast of the fill to the surroundings. Try the rotation adaptation controls to rotate the fill when you have a curved pattern, such as a design along the edge of a dinner plate. If there is a repeating pattern with elements of different sizes, such as a brick walkway captured in perspective, use the Scale option to resize the fill to match the pattern. If there are horizontally symmetrical elements in an image, try checking the Mirror option. If you want to add to or subtract from your initial selection, use the Lasso tools in the workspace. With their Add or Subtract option, output and save your work. In the Output settings on the right side of the workspace, choose Output to New Layer for maximum flexibility. Click OK to close the content-aware workspace. Your changes appear on a new layer in the Layers panel. Save the document in PSD or TIFF format to retain the layer created by content-aware fill. Finally, we are done for today. Thanks for watching. See you in the upcoming videos. MD was with you here on GebZilla.